Welcome to Founders Unplugged, hosted by Greg McCallum. Long-form, honest conversations with founders and entrepreneurs from around the world.
Yeah, hi Greg. Nice being with you here in this podcast. I'm based in Palo Alto, so my very early morning. Still getting some cup of coffee here, and
good morning.
Looking forward, to our conversation. So my name is Nick, Nikolai, Nick, how you want it, and I think I'm more comfortable with Nick since I kind of tired of switching between different countries, so traveling a lot. Spend most of the time in the US and Palo Alto right now, and we have an incubator here. It's called the Startup House Incubator, and a venture capital firm with all kinds of analytics about startups, building our own products. So I also travel a lot around the world to meet with entrepreneurs, to mentor startups. So that's pretty much what I've been working on. Also, like focusing on a lot of expertise in startup analytics. It's so-called growth economics for startups. So based on the numbers, based on the startup metrics, we kind of create a digital twin of a startup with all the key metrics, the traction numbers, and then use the math and statistics to guide founders to success and to predict which startups are fundable and more successful.
And that's VC Score, right? That you were talking about.
Yeah, that's VC Score AI. Yeah. That's basically our product. So my background is pretty kind of simple. I started my company out of college, sold it to Intel, not like sold, but kind of Intel acquired, acquired right. And hired. I like more than not an acquisition, more than a hiring action, pretty much. So we did a lot of online tools, web e-commerce projects for e-learning tools for Intel, and then after joining Intel's team, I also worked with Intel Capital, which is a corporate venture capital group of Intel, and my job was at that time I was super curious how to build global companies. That's how I got into the US in the very beginning. Moved in to the US and went through different educational programs in different colleges. So I started up with the Harvard Business School. We did entrepreneurship education there. So that's how I learned all the key things about building companies. What is actually entrepreneurship in a nutshell? It's Howard Stevenson was the chief faculty at Harvard, and this basic definition that entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity with no regard to resources currently controlled. So that's pretty much the classical foundational definition of entrepreneurship. Yeah. Thanks to Intel, I went through all the top colleges in the US, including Harvard. Then we started a joint program with UC Berkeley here in the Bay Area. That's how I got into the Bay Area. It's called Technology Entrepreneurship Theory to Practice. So Harvard is more like a classical education case method, well known for having that case method at Harvard. But Berkeley is more like engineering driven. So many different labs on campus, and at Haas School of Business, we kind of started thinking how to bring some of the technologies in those labs to the market. And that was called Technology Entrepreneurship from Theory to Practice, how to build great products using great technologies. And that's my story. The Bay Area started. And then I also went through the Lean Launchpad program at Stanford, where I had around me a diverse crowd of Stanford students from both Graduate School of Business, which is an MBA program at Stanford, and Stanford Engineering. So we had mixed teams, both engineers and business people working together to create new companies. So that's pretty much my specialization. All my life, all my kind of professional path was about entrepreneurship and startups. And I think was lucky enough to join Intel, to go through the top colleges here in the US, to get exposed to the best people. And so right now I'm in Palo Alto most of the time. But also go to UK. I will go to UK. I think I travel to New York next week, and then to London end of next week. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Excellent. And how long are you going to be in London for?
Like a day. London is the best for connecting. So I go for holidays to Cyprus, and London is the best place to go to Paphos.
Right. Okay.
from London.
So not for work, literally just as a layover, and then off you go again.
Yeah, the Christmas season is coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like a real baptism by fire, like to be thrown into that, like you said, through with IBM, to be exposed to all of this ecosystem in such an entrenched way. And this is in the early 2000s, right? I'm assuming around that sort of time.
Was
a lot's
a couple
happening
of decades
then too.
ago. Yeah.
So that's really at the peak of when everything is happening with IBM and Silicon Valley and
Intel. Intel.
sorry, not IBM, Intel. Sorry. Yeah, amazing. So what were you doing before this? I mean, so and the startup you founded before that got that you then acqui-hired via Intel, that was RPEC. ARPTech, is that right?
Yeah,
am I saying that right?
Yeah. E-learning platforms. We actually, it was a funny story. We built a similar web app, similar to Facebook, even before Facebook.
Oh, really?
So it's again like a startup on college. So students created their pages, put likes, some kind of personal blogs, and it actually looked like Facebook. So the picture. The profile picture on the left, the newsfeed, everything. And Intel got is like extremely interested in e-learning systems, how to start like math, STEM education online, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math education online. So that was the main focus of how I collaborated with Intel. At that time, we had no cloud, so Intel gave me all kind of servers. We created our own server room with Intel servers and processors. Deployed all the servers, deployed all the web apps on them, and that was fun. I'm good at kind of starting things, but ultimately I ended up partnering with the great people, having great product co-founders around me. I will speak a bit later about how the team works, how the team composition works, and why it's the most important part in this journey. But at that time, I was fortunate enough, so I have engineering background. I didn't write a single line of code at that time, so I was more like on a evangelizing side, so explaining why it's important what we do, why we do what we do. But then so it's kind of marketing in a sense. But I've also seen marketeers way better, way more advanced than I'm. So I probably have good expertise in analytics and math. That's probably it. But at that time, I had like a team of 20 people, engineers, software developers, UI, UX, also, system administrators and stuff. So that was like my first company, which more like a student lab in a sense, but still pretty successful. We got the first award at they had here in San Francisco. They had like a technology competition where the most innovative companies got some awards. So we were awarded together with Google some major awards for being quite innovative and advanced in terms of technology. It's early days of web.
That's great. So before you founded this or co-founded this company, like did you have long-term ambitions to be an entrepreneur, to be a founder, or like was that always the goal?
No, that was not. It was by accident. I was curious how web works. I was also curious how computers work and networks. I kind of was a system administrator for some time, and after that, I thought, okay, let's try to build some products. And I think that the most exciting part for me, having a product which evolves and lives its own life, and we have new users coming in, and then get some traction. So at that time, I literally knew nothing about it. The more I know, the more I learn about products, about startups, the more I understand that I know very, very little. So that's my main motivation for getting the right people to the team. And
I can understand that definitely. Every day I'm learning. The gap in my knowledge is just bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah,
100%.
But this is why I love speaking with people like you on my show, because I learn so much from speaking with every conversation I have. I learn an enormous amount. So I hope that it's the same for others. But so very much. It sounds to me like you become a founder really just because of your innate curiosity into what this sort of technology could do.
Probably, yeah. I first got interested in some topic. Initially, it was how networks operate, what is the protocol, internet protocols, TCP/IP, DNS, all those complicated technical stuff. So I still sometimes curious to dive deeper into how modern VPN protocols work. Studied WireGuard a few days ago. Yeah, so that's kind of how it all initially started from a technology side, since I come with an engineering background, as I said. But then, yeah, the same curiosity. So since we created a product, I was curious how to monetize it, how to bring it to market, how to develop the product, how to scale it. And yeah, that was my curiosity. Kind of another wave of
The
new
next stage.
questions.
Yeah.
The next stage, how the venture market works, and that's why I was very excited to be with Intel, because like not just sourcing startups and learning from other founders. So that was one thing. So so my kind of job there was building an ecosystem of startups. So as I said, we started the programs with UC Berkeley. It was like regional startup competitions all over the world. We had European startups, we had Latin America, we had startups from FSU countries, like from the Soviet Union, we had startups from Asia. All startups were coming in to the UC Berkeley, and that was very diverse group of different international founders from all over the world. So that was the kind of big excitement, how to build startups in different countries, what are the similarities, what are the differences there. And and then we call it at Intel Berkeley Technology Entrepreneurship Challenge. So the startups came to UC Berkeley. We built some kind of a program for them with the mentors, like an accelerator, which Skydeck is now a perfect example of such program. It's an accelerator, startup accelerator in Berkeley. And so my job was kind of finding interesting companies, running analytics on them, analyzing if it's a good company from an investor's viewpoint. And if it was a good company, I brought it to Intel Capital. So they operated, they transacted the deals, invested in some of the entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So that was my kind of sourcing approach. So that I later institutionalized in ABRT VC. So I was very excited about helping more entrepreneurs, getting funding. Yeah. And also my co-founders in ABRT have great relationship with very reputable VC firms, like Insight Partners, for example, in the United States. It's a well-known venture capital firm, invested in like all top tech companies like Twitter, for example, at some point of time. So Insight Partners in the US, Mangrove Capital in Europe, in Luxembourg, is a European firm. We just started working with Mangrove when they've been well known for being first institutional investor in Skype, and like also kind of like unicorn investors club in a sense. And so that's how we started expanding this model, just going beyond just Intel Capital, adding more VC partners to the network. And over the next decade, we added like 20 venture capital firms to be our co-investment partners. We always co-invested, so investing directly in a company, but just joining. So the model is quite simple. You find a startup, you bring it to like Insight or Mangrove. If Mangrove is happy, we join on the same terms. That's basically the investment model we operated, taking maybe 10, 15, 20% of the round, like minority position, but still quite active. We took observer seats on the board, sourcing startups, running analytics on them. And I learned a lot from, how different VCs look at the business, because depending on the stage, on the business category, stage is like a prototype or paying users, or just the first users not monetizing yet. So different stages of business development, and like different industry sectors. Insight, for example, in the early days loved enterprise software. Mangrove loved consumer internet. So different industry sectors, different categories, B2B, B2C, enterprise, different business models. So based on those specifics, investors looked completely different at different companies. And I enjoyed the same curiosity, learning a lot from them, how they analyze startups, what frameworks, what analytics frameworks they use to select the best entrepreneurs. That's I still quite excited about doing it, meeting people, learning a lot, because markets evolve. Also, markets like right now, it's a big hype on AI, the blockchain is back on track. It's a kind of bull run in a sense after the elections and everything. So, and then we also had the Dive into Silicon Valley program. We started that like 2010, 2011 first. We just had a batch, the most recent batch coming in here and leaving. They just left last week. So we got more than like 1,000 entrepreneurs from all over the world, and some pretty cool companies went through the program, like Miro, that's collaboration software. Real time board, that was at that time, real time board. Then guys with the stock charting software, TradingView was one of the participants of the program, and then like a few other software companies. In some we invested. So we had joint deals with Insight partners, as I said, like Acronis, and then a few others companies. So like in total, we made 30 plus investments, so like 1,000 plus entrepreneurs, 30 plus investments, co-investments with the VC firms. And then I was always thinking how to institutionalize that into something bigger, and that's how we came to the VC Score idea. Okay, let's build a platform which has so right now we have over 200 investors on the platform.
Hi, a friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, like, and subscribe. And if you are feeling really supportive, please consider reviewing the show on the podcast platform of your choice. It all really helps support what we do. Thank you. Now back to the show.
So it has all the investor expectations, and then we can give a feedback to startups, what investors think of them. So as a startup founder, I immediately know if I'm a good startup from an investor's viewpoint, who are the best, most relevant VCs that match my stage, my category, right? My kind of traction as well. Because I think traction is the main thing, how to, kind of measure accurately measure a startup traction based on the stage, category, business model, and industry sector. Different companies should use different set of metrics to be analyzed. And so that's how we institutionalize that co-investment model by creating a product that's more like a historical historical evolution of curiosity leading to creating new products, and new products, they unlock next levels. never stop learning.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you finding, I mean, how long has VC Score been going now? You say you've got about 200 investors on there, but how long has it actually been onboarding new startups?
It's pretty fresh. We started onboarding startups like a couple months ago, just testing it right now. We did not launch it yet, so we're just fine-tuning all the algorithms, making sure the app works well. We have all the scenarios added to the app. So we tested right now that with over like a bit more than 100 startups. So far, so good. I also got another advantage in training analysts. So before, it took me 5-6 months to train a venture analyst to be able to run analysis on private companies, understand all the key metrics. But now app does it for them. So it makes my life easier training analysts. So like in the last month, I trained like 100 analysts. So they also validate the data. I got the question, so how can you validate the data from startups? The easiest way for me, like a classical old school guy, just have analysts hopping on a call with a startup and making sure the data is correct. That's. But again, my life is very easy right now because it's way easier to train analysts, way easier to onboard startups. When I first started, I went to Insight Partners. They use Salesforce.com to have a startup profiles with like a scorecards with all the numbers and key metrics. So right now I actually have a similar approach, but startups do it for me. They put in all the metrics, analysts validate or cross-check. Sometimes analysts could create a profile, a startup profile, and then startup founders would claim it and confirm that the data is correct and it's good to go. But this approach, like, is a bit self-service also, because before we always did it on a calls. So you first set up a call and then you start asking all the questions to the founder, explaining the metrics. But right now it's a bit easier because we have the data request form, like the application form in a sense. So we decided, thought all startups apply YC. Let's make a similar to YC application form, and startup founders would just go through that, put in their key metrics, we cross-check, validate them, and then we can actually see the numbers. So it brings way more, like, I would say, a clarity, right? In a sense, so the clarity in numbers enables better communication. Startup with mentors, startup with investors. And in a sense, I kind of also seen a couple use cases when it becomes kind of cultural norm. So before pitching, you immediately see the scorecard, you see all the key numbers, and that also is kind of democratizing access to capital, because then investors would pay attention to the best startups, pay more attention to the startups that have good traction. They get more attention from the VCs. And I will share a bit more use cases about it maybe later. But so far so good. It's been quite fresh start. Got some excitement around, like also among my colleagues, among analysts and startups as well, because like a founder comes, oh my god, I never looked at my company from this perspective. Oh, I have like this because immediately you're able as a founder, as a startup founder, it's like express business health checkup. You immediately see the strong points, the weak points, and based on that,
and you're seeing it from the investor's perspective as well, right?
Yeah,
for the first time sometimes. Yeah.
Over 200 investors. So we build the benchmarks based on the investors' data. And that gives a founder better, broader market perspective. What not just a particular investor, but what market, like a venture market, what expects from a startup at some point of time. That's a valuable part. I mean, like helping founders, how to equip startup founders to a completely different level of success and impact in the world. That's I think the mission, that the purpose, my own purpose.
Your purpose, yeah.
Why I do what I do, because I think entrepreneurs, they have a major, I would say, like driving force. Entrepreneurs are the major driving force behind evolution of humanity right now, at least. Maybe even in the earlier days, you had sailors jumping on a ship
to invent the wheel, right?
Exactly, and discovering
someone needed to
frontiers.
invent fire. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's also the driving force behind the economy, right? We see enormous job openings, and it's incredibly important. And countries that can attract the right environment, create the right environment and attract entrepreneurs, for startups is incredibly important.
That's the second big thing. How do you build this? So entrepreneurs, for sure, they're the driving force for evolution, for economy. So like outliers, like going into the unknown and creating the new, like discovering America, Columbus, in a sense. So that's that pattern existed in the earlier days, but these days it's even more important, because we have more and more challenges that we face as a humanity, how to enhance human abilities. I like anti-aging, and how to live in a good health longer. So that's a big question mark. I actually had one of the speakers at the DIVE program here. He's very bullish on quantum, how to make quantum computing. And then AI, enabled by quantum computing, would do, for example, a sophisticated drug discovery process. And the drug discovery, that would create a completely new set of, like medication and drugs that would enable a better living, like how to eliminate cancer, how to this so-called longevity, because like aging is also, in a sense, some people in the digital health space, they say that aging is a disease, and we could live way longer than we do right now. And so like this also the environment thing, how to keep nature and our environment healthy, space exploration, so many challenges we have. So my main, how to say, like goal is create environment where we can activate and attract and activate a critical mass of genius people, surround with the smartest people, like surround myself with the smartest people here. So like mostly like most passionate and smartest, how to create a positive impact in this and direct that collective intelligence of a genius people to solve the most important existing and emerging challenges of humanity. That's something that motivates me. That's actually the why I do what I do, why we need to equip the startup founders, how to create the environment, how to how to create an environment where more and more geniuses respond to these grand challenges we face as humanity. And I think even these days, with all this instability in the world as what's happening and stuff, so the creative power sometimes goes on how to make drones, how to, bring in more destruction. But I think we either flourish or perish. So all creative power of humanity should go for building and to create wealth, abundance. As one of our tenants said, we are the house of, we have the startup house, I said before, Incubator. We're the house of love and peace. So pretty much directing the attention, the creative power of genius people to bring in more wealth, abundance, and prosperity to the world. That's pretty much I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, and that resonates with me very deeply. You know, I love doing what I do too for a lot of the same reasons you said. I just love being in the room with smart, innovative people who are pushing the boundaries, doing something new, unique. You know, something a bit scary, something adventurous, like
Of
breaking
course,
new
it's
ground.
always new things,
you know,
always scary. Going
exactly.
into unknown, but
Yeah,
it's also
exactly.
exciting.
It is. It's very exciting, and I think, and I think I know where it comes from. It comes from my very earliest obsessions with science fiction. I think that's where it comes from. Like, because of, there came a point in my sort of adult life where I realized there are people who are making science fiction reality, and those people are cool. Like, I want to speak to those people. Like, that's awesome, and so really I think that's, if you were to boil down my enthusiasm, I think, for this space down to anything at a really basic level, it is just my inner child just getting excited, like, oh, we could have these cool pieces of technology. Like I rewatched Minority Report with my son recently because he'd not seen it before, and I was watching it and I was like, I remember when I first saw this movie, it was amazing. Like, it was like, wow, this is all so futuristic. And I'm looking at it now thinking, this is all doable now. Like, we can do all of this shit now, like, apart from the whole predicting crime thing. But like the actual sort of technology, that they were using and all of that, I was just thinking we could do that now, but we won't because it's not very practical. They were using like transparent screens and stuff. I was like, why would you want a transparent screen as a monitor? Like, that makes no sense. But like, we could do it, is the point. So yeah, it's a very childlike thing, I guess, for me, but it's exciting. It is exciting. You mentioned the startup house. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So another question. Yeah. So with environment, the reason why is because we have this world of genius in front of us. How to empower, how to equip the smartest people, how to help them, and then we decided, okay, let's create the startup house. So that's basically our approach. We started, as I said in the very beginning, as a venture capital firm, but that evolved into a place where founders would physically live, create, and share ideas. We got the first house just for our portfolio companies here in the Bay Area. As I said, like, I first came here like early 2000s with Intel. Then we started ABRT venture firm, I think it was like 2007, 2006. And the first companies, they started growing, they needed a place. We got the first house in, I think with my friends from Ukraine, we got the first house in 2010. So that was the very first startup house we had here in Sunnyvale. It was very successful, worked for a couple of years, but we didn't even open it up for others. We just had it for ourselves. And then I partnered with Carlos from Spain to build the startup embassy. So it's pretty much the same hacker house. It was actually well described in the HBO series when HBO series came out. Said, "Oh, they're showing us our startup house, the Erlich Bachman thing, and all the startups coding there and living together." So it's pretty much what we had at the moment with the startup embassy. And then before COVID, it scaled to a network of houses. We had like 12, like close to 15 houses here in the Bay Area: San Francisco, Berkeley, Stanford, Palo Alto, Atherton, San Jose. So like across the Bay Area, we had a number of houses. And yeah, I mean, like, great community, great people. We had pitch events. Investors came into us. And so that's how I think infrastructure component, like a physical infrastructure with the startup houses became very important. I went to Hong Kong, to China a couple of times, sourced capital. So we started working on the acquisition deals, actually acquiring those houses and creating, I would call it a hybrid product, real estate private equity plus venture capital equity pool. So as an investor, like say a very conservative family office in Hong Kong, and you understand real estate well, but you don't understand startups. How we can educate more and more private investors about the world of startups? What do startups do? So basically, you invest in real estate, and if some of the startups become successful, the startups residing in the properties, we build kind of equity pool model. Some small chunks, like many accelerators or incubators do it, like small percentage, less than 1%, 0 point something percent goes to the equity pool. But if startup becomes successful, that gives you additional upside add-on, venture capital add-on to the traditional real estate private equity model. So that's basically the how to say it, education tool for private investors. And we thought, okay, let's have the infrastructure component. But besides the infrastructure, we also have the technology, apps, data apps, all these things like VC Score, and the same syndicate model, co-investing or syndicate model that we've always been working on. So right now, if you ask me about our approach, how the firm works, how we operate. So from just the venture capital fund, we evolved into a venture capital company, which has its own products, like VC Score, which has like a physical infrastructure with the startup houses, and which has a syndicate, the same syndicate model we operated from the very beginning. So we say like integrate capital, technology, and infrastructure, right, to transform how the startups, how the true innovators get funding and grow their companies, grow their businesses. So that's what we do, kind of transforming. So if you take like a journey of an entrepreneur, and what are the main challenges? You need to get a place to live. You need to have mentors. One of our startups was actually coding in the backyard. We put a table. He was like parsing YouTube, getting more and more like videos from the YouTube. He trained AI to be able to understand human emotions. And so you need like a place, you need a good mentors, you need some investors, some funding, and then just focus on your kind of path to success. So the rest, that's basically environment, how you can create environment. And when you surround yourself with the people who have similar passion, similar vision, and co-creating together this harmonious future. So I still, in a sense, a bit optimist. So I'm optimistic about the future, about like we can together create a harmonious future. And so that's pretty much how we can transform every aspect of entrepreneurs' journey, starting with like how true innovators how they create products, how they get funding, how they grow their businesses, and then the programs come in, to the place like the dive. I also did, like already mentioned, we have the mentors and investors and the pitches, and I think so. We're also planning to have some kind of a program with my friend from Hong Kong. Entrepreneurship as a spiritual path. So it's like a hero's journey in a sense. I've seen in a couple of your podcasts you've been talking about the religion and God. So I do think that each person has a calling in life, certain mission, and the nature or the God or the nature embedded that calling into us. That's why we're passionate. We become excited about some things and having that inner calling and service in a sense. So I think like getting rich is not the best motivation because so many startups fail. So if you have like intent, okay, I will do nothing and I will get rich fast, it's not going to work with startups. So this inner calling and the curiosity is the major driving force for going into the unknown, having that fear. You remember that someone said like entrepreneurship is like eating glass and staring in the abyss, right? It's pretty much the same kind of fear entrepreneurs have. But since there is like inner calling and a service, like community service in a sense, right? We're kind of able to better service people around us, to better service world by addressing these big challenges we face as a humanity. So that's pretty much entrepreneurship as a spiritual path. And then hero embarks on a journey, the Jung journey, right? The hero's journey, or Campbell. Actually, we have this one of the kind of methodologies based on the 4 steps to epiphany. It starts with a quote, a citation from a quote from Campbell.
If you are enjoying this episode and want to support the show, please like, subscribe with notifications turned on, and let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. This lets YouTube know we are doing something right. Back to the show.
That a hero with 1,000 faces. That's pretty much the same. Entrepreneurship as a spiritual path course we've been thinking to put together to build kind of resilience. One of the founders said, "Oh, I just quit my job to go through some suffering. So I'm now busy with the suffering. I'm taking my part of the suffering." So I suffer maybe a year, 2 years. I have MVP, I have product market fit. Things probably will get better, but right now I'm through the suffering phase. That's
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, the suffering doesn't stop there. Like, that's when it's just starting. Like,
yeah.
You think that's suffering? You wait until you've got a team of 50 people, 100 people, 500 people. That's suffering.
Yeah,
and then you've got
true.
a lot of people relying on you, and but no, I really like what you said about that. There's that kind of that drive that. Yeah, it shouldn't be about money. Obviously, that is a nice bonus if it happens. Absolutely, we would all like to have money in the bank that allows us to be free and do other things. But the interesting trend you tend to see with entrepreneurs, like true entrepreneurs, is they just see that money as an opportunity to put into solving another problem. Like they're relentless. My philosophy on myself as a founder, the way I look at it is I want to leave the world in a better place than I found it in some way or another. And so when I've talked to people before about my startup, I think it's important. I think what we're doing is important. And if everything went wrong and and let's say, I don't know, I made a massive mistake, and when we exit, which is the plan, I made a mistake and I walked away with a really bad deal, and I ended up with like $100 in my bank because I was an idiot and used bad lawyers or whatever. As long as my solution is out in the world, helping the world and making it better, I'd be a bit annoyed, but obviously I'd be happy. That's the goal, is to get the solution out there. The money bit would just be a nice bonus to get paid for all of the blood, sweat, and tears, but it's not the main mission. The main mission is get this thing out into the world, get people using it, make the world a better place. And I think the vast majority of founders I speak to, at least the ones that are successful, they're so stubborn about the problem and the solution to that problem, more so than about the money, that they succeed. Because if you're just focusing on the money,
leave it better than you found it. I think is a great motto. We have it around the startup houses. It applies to physical infrastructure, applies to the world. How we can make it a better place.
Leave the world in a better place. I mean, I think, to be honest, I'm always very cautious, and you may have heard me say this on other episodes. I'm always very cautious in this show talking about our space, because it's so niche. Like, not the rest of the world doesn't know about our space, right? But I always try to make comparisons to like normal human beings and the normal world, because we live in outer space, and I still think it's a good philosophy to have, even if you're not in entrepreneurship, if you're not in startups. Aim to leave the world in a better place than the way you found it. That's a good philosophy to have in general. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also, I mean, external transformation starts also with internal transformations. How we can transform ourselves, and the world then automatically becomes better in a sense. So I've done a lot of. I have a passion, so I'm like a little bit of on the mystical side, if it comes to the God and spirituality. So I went through all the spiritual schools, or like studied spiritual traditions of the people of the world. And I started
really interesting.
I've been conditioned as a Christian, but then I went through Indian school. Yeah,
that's a very specific use of words. Conditioned. Yeah,
that's how I started. But then I went through the Indian school for like 15-16 years. I've been doing the so-called Dwanas University. That's Indian school based out of Chennai, and they have a lot of kind of mystic. They have the so-called teaching of the day. And one of the teachings is that first you transform yourself, and then the world transforms automatically. So everything we see around us is merely a projection of what is going on inside. And if we pay enough attention to what is going on inside, experience it, live it fully. Well, life is here to be lived. Then transformation happens. Something happens. So, some people call it enlightenment. Some people call it, like a
mindset.
Exactly. Mukti in Hindu.
But it's very, very true. I mean, like, if you, it's the whole idea of like the hammer and the nail, right? A hammer will see everything as a nail. Like it's that kind of approach, that kind of philosophy. Is if you reframe what you believe you are, then you will just naturally, even if you just look at basic human psychology, I don't think you need to even go necessarily to the realm of spirituality to find that. But if that's your thing, fine. But you know what I mean? Like if you just look at that from a base point, like you surround yourself with the right types of people, you put yourself in the right environment, and you work on yourself to look at things as opportunities or to look at things more positively rather than negatively. The world literally restructures itself around you because of the way you're seeing it changes. It's like, you're suddenly becoming Neo in the Matrix, seeing the code for the first time, as opposed to just seeing everything as solid walls and brick and things like that, right?
True.
It sounds
very,
obvious
very
when
true.
you say it, but there are so many people that I meet that don't get that. They see everything as it definitely doesn't help that we seem to live in the age of victimhood as well, like where we seem to be actively.
We so much got used to reacting to external circumstances that sometimes, if more attention goes to, okay, let's see what's going on inside, that
Right.
completely changes their perspective. And then external problems would cease to exist if things are set right internally. So
they just become so insignificant, but it's also about, people seem to a lot of the time forget, myself included, I think we're all guilty of this, that we are in complete control of our reaction to external situations and forces. Like we control how we react. Like no one's forcing us to react a certain way. That's a choice. Like, so, we can absolutely change our destiny basically, on that basis. As soon as we take a bit more control and accountability for our own actions and the way that we react to things, then you kind of have this domino effect. Like less things don't affect you as much. I mean, what we're essentially describing there is resilience, right? Which is a common subject that comes up time and time again in our world, right? Especially when it comes to founders and founding teams. That's a heavy thing that is quite often talked about from an investment perspective, right? Trying to assess resilience.
100%. And then the second thing you mentioned, people are super important. Someone says like you are the average of 5 people you spend the most of your time with. So who your co-founders are, who your spouse is, family. So that's by choosing, making choices about these people, about the environment we're in, we can significantly transform ourselves. And choosing people, we're choosing us, the future version of us. So that's
absolutely. Yeah,
super crucial.
I mean, again, very selfishly, that's one of the reasons why I love doing this show, because I get to meet people who I think make me better. And by surrounding myself with people who I aspire, I admire and I'm impressed by, and who are smarter than me, like I never want to be the smartest guy in the room. And it's a really good thing for me on my entrepreneurial journey, like getting to meet VCs and exited founders and founders early on in their journey, late in their journey, whatever. It's like, I knew early on that I wouldn't really be able to grow and become a better leader, a better CEO, a better founder, or even angel investor or whatever, or host or whatever, unless I surrounded myself with people who had done it, who were doing it, who were crap at it, like who were good at it. Like, surround myself with those people. Like, it's a good thing to do, right? In the same way that I think I become a better father by surrounding myself with good fathers, or a better husband by surrounding myself with other good husbands. Like, same thing. I'm not going to surround myself with terrible parents and awful kids and terrible husbands that cheat on their wives. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a good it's not a good role model. So same kind of concept, right?
Yeah, and I think it was the main motivation for me to scale the startup house model, as you have a place where you're surrounded We're the smartest geniuses.
Well, I was going to ask why you thought that was, because you said it was like a really crucial point. Like, I was going to ask why. So is that the main reason? It just to create that atmosphere for founders?
Yeah,
basically?
from a selfish standpoint, it's 100% atmosphere. I think
Right.
I feel environment a lot. I depend on environment. And for me, having a great environment with great people surrounding me and working on exciting things, that's the main reason from a selfish standpoint. Of course, it also relates to the mission and the service and the calling and whatever. But I think sometimes it's actually funny to see how our desires, our selfish asks, always aligned with the calling. So there is certain talents and gifts we have that's also relates to the calling, but those talents and gifts they correspond to the desires that we have. So we have built-in desires. We need to get something, but the most exciting part, how the nature works, it also gave us talents and gifts to fulfill that desires in us, and I think they kind of correlate or correspond one.
Well, yeah, of course, because if
other.
they're your desires, they're more than likely going to be the desires of other people too. So you're fulfilling a need there as well, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious to ask you, like, for some advice, actually. So on this topic, I never thought to ask anyone this, but you're I think in the best position to answer this question. So as a founder, relatively early on, we're at seed stage. We're about to announce our investment round soon. It's pretty ambitious. Our whole project's very ambitious. I'm a father. I'm a married man. I've got a family. I've got, we're settled down. This is a very different situation for someone like me compared to young graduate, engineering background, tech founder who can uproot their life, move to Silicon Valley, go into a shared house with a bunch of other founders, live on like $100 a week. You know what I mean? Like, what does a founder like me do in a situation like this? Because of applying to things like YC Combinator or even to something like you, is that really an option for someone like me, or do I have to do things differently?
I just met a founder here. He is in a biotech startup. He came in from LA, yeah, for a week. He's living here on the bunk bed. He has two daughters. The kids have grown up a bit, so they're in UC Berkeley. But he is a married man, a father of two, in a biotech startup in Menlo Park. And he came in and he lives here on a bunk bed for $100. That's exactly what you just said.
Hey, I'll be happy to
right
do it, but I'm
before
not
the
sure my
podcast.
wife would be very happy about it.
Right before the podcast, 5 minutes
Right.
before the podcast.
So there you go.
What do you do? Oh, I just came and I have a family, but I decided to stay in the startup house.
He's got a very understanding wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
I have...
like our another founder, he says, "Oh, send me invoice. My wife is gonna pay it because my wife has a control over all bank accounts. So she pushes the button."
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. Yeah. Well, no, look, I'm sure it's doable, but it's just, I find it interesting because, it is a slightly different dynamic, and also my kids are fairly young, like, 2 and 10, so it's, it's an interesting and something that I have to think about, fairly strategically. I've obviously talked to my wife already about it and said, look, if we were to get accepted in something like, I haven't applied yet, but if we were to do something like this and I was to have to spend, time away and then, I would come back and whatever else, but would you still be married to me if I did that? And she said, yeah, of course, because it's what you want to do. We'd figure it out. So yeah, we'd figure it out, but still it does add a slightly different dynamic because if that would mean, I would be coming back and forth versus someone who could just stay. Like, you know what I mean? There'd be difference,
Yeah.
and then obviously bigger financial responsibilities too. So then that's an interesting thing. You would have to be making a good case to the investors as to why maybe you'd pay yourself a slightly bigger salary than maybe someone straight out of university, and things like that. So it's added complications, but there is always a solution to every problem, right?
In my case, what helped is to build. I read Robert Kiyosaki early days, and he always advises build asset column, which is able to generate some passive income. So if you have some income generating things you're not deeply involved in, like passive, it's called passive income, then it kind of helps sustain. So on the expenses side, I think like 10, 15K is enough to cover most of expenses for a family. And building asset column, which is able to generate 10 to 15K passive income, would get most people out of the rat race where they have to chase some projects and do something to earn more. So that's, I think, also doable. Some invested in crypto, some bought Bitcoin and gold, whatever. Some have real estate. That's how actually I got into real estate. So I have a number of real estate investments. I bought like 5, 6 pieces of real estate early days. And the earlier you start, of course, it's always the better because the earlier it's exponential, the compound interest. The earlier you start building asset column, the more it grows. So my overall like life recommendation, like strategic, build asset column early on. Think how you build your asset column on a balance sheet, your personal balance sheet.
Yeah.
we always strategize companies and work on finance of companies, balance sheet and income statement. What I learned from that Kiyosaki thing is you can also do it for people. You can have your own balance sheet and income statement as a company, as a person and a company.
I have that for myself, for our household. I have the same thing. I have like, I've taken the same approach that I would do for my businesses over the years. And I've got one for our house, for our incomes, for everything. Yeah. It's a good thing to do. Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Well, look, we've already managed to go through part one of so quickly. I don't know, the time goes so quickly in this show. It still boggles my mind. So we're going to come back to part two in a couple of days. For those listening and watching, make sure you check back in, subscribe, blah, 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 so you can come back for part two. And we're going to get more into what you're doing with VC Score. I want to hear a bit more about that. And you know, we've talked broadly about it, but I want to get specific because there's a lot of interesting stuff.
I want to start with the market overview because momentum is very interesting.
Yeah.
What's going on the venture market? That's the first thing. The vision, where the market goes. And then VC Score, all this math and statistics.
Let's do that. That's great.
Yeah.
So those listening and watching right now, make sure you tune in for part two in a couple of days to hear about all of that. So that is end of part one.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening and or watching. Subscribe with notifications turned on to get notified when part two comes out. While you wait, please join in the conversation in the comments below.